Matt Rhule is hitting all the right buttons since he's arrived back in late November, and it looks like he has the Huskers on track for a quick turnaround. Plus, you have to give Rhule credit, as when he took over the program, he went straight into going after some of the top recruits in the nation, even after the Huskers couldn't win more than 4 games the last 5 or 6 years. He swung for the fences by pursuing the #1 quarterback in the nation in Rhule. Yes, it was a long shot, but it shows you how Rhule thinks. It didn't even cross his mind that there was no way this 4-win team could grab the #1 player. He thought about what the #1 player could do to help turn this team around. And if you think about it, wow, what could have the Huskers done if Rhule committed to them? And after that didn't work out, Rhule didn't pout or cry about it. He just calmly called up his #2 choice and said, all right, come on and down, convincing 4-star Daniel Kalen to drop Missouri, like the Huskers used to do regularly back in the day, and commit to the Huskers. Since then, Rhule has lit up the recruiting board, snatching up 17 of their 23 commitments in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Rhule has always been a coach on a team that had to evaluate players, as top recruits just don't commit to teams that can't win. So Rhule has always done his own evaluations, working out any player willing to show what they got, and makes his own judgment solely on his own evaluations. Everyone always seems to get caught up in these recruiting sites and these recruiting rankings and how many stars a player has that these recruiting sites give out to sell their own product. But keep in mind, the ones making these predictions are journalists within the media. They're ordinary people like you and I. And if one making these predictions was that damn good, then trust me, that person would be already working for one of these Power 5 programs and being paid as well as these top head coaches are being paid. And they would definitely not be sharing that information with any other school. So Rhule has always put his money on his own evaluations and what he believes a young man's capable of doing, based on his evaluations. Now, Rhule isn't going to be giving out any stars, but in his eyes, he's going to succeed or not succeed on his terms and not on someone else's. Rhule knows what he's looking for. And keep in mind, when you get to players, 5-star players like Rhule or even defensive lineman Williams and Winari, players like that, they're no-brainers. You don't need to evaluate players like Rhule and Winari. The odds are players like Winari and Rhule, they're going to be playing on Sundays in 3 or 4 years. So you don't need to be evaluating players like that. Where the evaluation needs to come is when you get off the top players. So once you get off the top players in the nation, and I mean 4 stars and below, then it's a crapshoot. If you don't believe me, just go back and look at all the 3 or 4-star players over the years. You'll see how random each one did. Some succeeded, some didn't. Some bombed, some overachieved. So when you get off them top players, then it's just basically a crapshoot. So Rhule needs to make damn sure who he's offering a scholarship to can not only play at a high level, but has the ability to learn and be developed at a high level. Because if you don't believe in the talent you are offering a scholarship to, well, then you're in the wrong business. So Rhule wants to make damn sure who he's offering a scholarship is what he's looking for, which is how he did it at Temple and at Baylor. So I guarantee you Rhule knows what he's doing. So let's get into this video and take a look at a few of these commitments that Rhule grabbed during the last month. I think we're going to like what we see and what we hear. Like I said, the Huskers have received 17 commitments over the last 3 or 4 weeks, mainly from Rhule and his staffs evaluating during these camps the Huskers held in Texas and right there in Lincoln. And at the end of this video, put a comment below on what you think about these commitments. Is there anyone that sticks out to you, someone you're looking forward to or excited about, or are some that you wish they didn't offer a scholarship to? So put a comment below what you think about that. First one I want to bring up is Nebraska's own Carter Nelson, the 4-star tight end out of Ainsworth, Nebraska. Carter is 6'5", 220 pounds, and for a while it looked like Carter might choose Notre Dame or even Georgia over the Huskers, but on June 28th, Carter announced he was going to stay home and play for the Huskers. Now, I don't think this one is much of a stretch for Rhule when it comes to evaluating Carter, as many of the top Power 5 schools were after Carter, including back-to-back national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs. Carter Nelson is considered the number 3 tight end in the 2024 recruiting class and the number 1 player in Nebraska. Carter also has a great relationship with some of the commitments we already have, including quarterback commit Daniel Kalen, which, if you remember, when Daniel committed, everyone was stating how the Huskers shouldn't be grabbing this kid, he wasn't very good, and that the Huskers were wasting a scholarship. And this includes some of the other Husker channels that were stating all this. But if you go back and watch my video I created in May when Daniel Kalen decommitted from Missouri, you'll see I was all in with this young man from the beginning, as I got to see him and evaluate him myself about a year ago during his junior year. And I came out of this thinking, this kid is good. I mean, real good. And he is just what the Huskers need right now. I noticed he doesn't get rattled easily. He has a great ability of shrugging off anything bad that happens, which is huge when it comes to a quarterback. The other factor is his high football IQ, which is the highest I've personally seen in my 30-plus years. So if you get a chance, watch that video. I'll leave a link in the description below. The next 2 commitments I want to talk about, they are Daniel Kalen's Bellevue West teammates, wide receivers Devon Hall and Isaiah McMorris. Hall is a 4-star commitment, about 6'2", 190 pounds, and is a very explosive wide receiver, which gives him a rare combination of speed as well as size. He runs a 10.6 100-meter, and he also can high jump at 6 foot 10 inches, which means he can beat any defender in many ways. He can blow by them with his speed. He can manhandle them at the line or in a crowd, and he has the size to out-jump any corner that's on him. This makes Hall a deadly weapon mainly down by the goal line. Now, his recruitment was a roller coaster ride, as it seemed Hall to be destined for the SEC, as he had offers from Arkansas, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, but it seemed like Devon was more interested in the Tennessee Vols when it came to the SEC. But after his official visit there, the Vols didn't offer him a scholarship right away, and they waited about 2 weeks before finally offering him. But by then, I feel the taste for them kind of disappeared, and the Huskers were back in the picture. It's hard not to get excited about having Hall and McMorris commit to the Huskers, on top of having their quarterback from high school in Daniel Kalen, who is one of the Elite 11 finalists this year, in which he was top in the accuracy challenge they did in the Elite 11 competition, which is another reason why they call Daniel Kalen Danny Dimes. I got a feeling the Bellevue West high school football team this year is going to have quite a few more fans rooting for them and interested in how they do this year. Now, Isaiah McMorris is a 3-star commit, and he comes in around 6 foot, 170 pounds. He's not as big as Devon, but he has different skills. The Bellevue West receiver isn't as big, and he isn't as physical as Hall, but when he gets his hands on the ball, he can make things happen. McMorris also has a few more offers around the nation, and he chose the Huskers over Penn State, USC, and Oklahoma. Rhule recruited McMorris hard, as Rhule liked what he saw in McMorris. Isaiah is probably going to line up, if I had to guess, as a slot receiver based on his size, but does have the ability to play on the outside as well. But I see him more as a slot receiver like Billy Kemp or Trey Palmer was, with Devon Hall being on that outside and Isaiah McMorris being in the slot side, plus quarterback Danny Dimes, Daniel Kalen, being their quarterback all the way back from high school. It's going to be exciting to see them gel, as these Bellevue West trio is going to have an edge just because they've been playing so long together, going all the way back to high school. Daniel Kalen probably knows these two receivers better than anybody else, and so the chemistry between these three are going to be key. Now, Hall and McMorris joined a pretty deep Nebraska recruiting class coming together, which seems to be coming nicely together for Rhule in his first full season. The next recruit I want to talk about is 3-star commit Landon Davidson. He's an inside offensive lineman. He's at around 6'4", 6'5", and he weighs 315 pounds. And he's already a pretty big guy. But what people don't realize about Davidson is that he can move extremely well, especially for his size. This kid runs a 40-yard dash in less than 5 seconds. Think about that for a minute. A 315-pound lineman that runs a 40 in under 5 seconds. Davidson is also very athletic, which gets overlooked when you play on the offensive line. But you're going to find out that he has pretty good quickness, and is going to make him a great offensive lineman. And his quickness and explosiveness as a big guy is going to give him an edge over a lot of other offensive linemen. And with Rhule's evaluating, I'm kind of excited to see what Rhule is seeing in all these players, but especially see what he saw in Davidson here. The next one I feel we stole, as I talked about him in my recruiting video a week ago, and that was 3-star commit Kewan Lacey. He's a running back out of Texas. Lacey is a big grab, as I stated in that video, my weekend recruiting video, and he's also another player that to me is getting overlooked. Lacey is 6 foot already, 200 pounds, with really good speed, and he will not hesitate to run past you or just run you over. I didn't think the Huskers were going to get him, but I also said in that video, when he got here and started talking to the other recruits and then got to talking to the coaching staff as well as Rhule, that you never know, they could convince him. Lacey is ranked as a 3-star player by all these recruiting sites, but he's another player I have higher ranked than what they have. I feel this young man is just much better than what these sites see in him. And a lot of these top schools must think like I do as well, because as he has some great offers, one of them being Ole Miss, which is where he was leaning just a week ago towards, and I thought that's where he was going to go. But I also said once he got here on his official visit last week that Rhule might be able to convince this kid to commit to the Huskers, as Nebraska did not have a running back commit at the time. Now, Ole Miss wasn't the only school wanting Lacey. He had some high offers like Alabama, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, as well as other Power 5 schools. So you could see this kid's a lot better than these sites were giving him credit, as I believe these Power 5 schools thought the same thing as I did. Now, Lacey is another Texas kid, which I believe now makes 7 commitments from the state of Texas, which you could see and tell that Rhule wants to make Texas a big grab state for them from here on out and going forward. Lacey plays at Lancaster High School just south of Dallas, which is the second largest class division of schools in the state. He's also another track player, running a 10.79 100 meter. Think about that. That's a 200-pound running back running a 10.79 100 meter. So like I said, he'll run around you and leave you, but without you knowing it, he might just run right over you. Now, after his strength and conditioning, I expect Lacey probably to be playing at a weight of around 215, 220, which is going to be perfect for the Big Ten. So I'm excited to see Lacey and what he can do. Now, next on the list is 3-star commit Evan Taylor. He's a cornerback. Taylor is a long, lengthy player at 6'3", which could lead him to playing wide receiver instead of defensive back, but could easily end up playing him at safety or even that rover position, depending on how his strength and conditioning goes when he gets there. With the right bulk and muscle, he could even land at defensive end. But Taylor has good speed. He runs a 10.6 100 meter, and with his length, it's going to be hard to get balls over his head. But his quickness and speed is definitely going to benefit him, especially if he ends up playing on the defensive side at either that rover position or up there on the line at defensive end. You could tell that Rhule obviously noticed something about this kid when he was here. So I'm excited to see what he ends up bringing and where he ends up playing and how well he does. The next one is 3-star commit Braylon Prude. He is a safety, and Braylon is another long, tall, lengthy kid, measuring in at 6'5", 190 pounds. And again, he'll probably end up moving either to wide receiver or, depending on his strength and conditioning, he could end up on the defensive line. And with his quickness, especially for his size, he's also another player Rhule and Coach Coop found at one of these camps and could be huge once he gets the right conditioning and right strength and conditioning and builds up that frame he has. The biggest thing about Braylon is his size, which could mean he might end up playing at that rover linebacker spot. But Prude is a big example of Rhule's own evaluation system, as the Huskers are the only one to offer this kid a Power 5 scholarship. They were the only Power 5 school to offer him a scholarship. So it's going to be excited to see what they saw in this kid. Next one on the list is 3-star commit Carlin Jones. He's a defensive lineman, and Carlin made the Huskers the 22nd commitment at the time for this class, and it was a huge commitment just due to the position he plays. Defensive line is a big need for the Huskers, and Jones, sitting at 6'4", 260 pounds, already has pretty decent size coming out of high school to play at the defensive line position. Carlin also has great explosiveness coming off the line and at a very high level as well, which is what the Huskers need playing on the defensive line. So I figured with his winter conditioning, Carlin could end up playing around 290 or maybe even 300 pounds. And with that quickness and explosiveness off the line, he's going to be a dominant force. So I'm excited to see where Carlin Jones ends up in his development and how well he plays. Now, Carlin is another player from the Houston area, and give the Huskers credit as they had fought for Carlin from many schools like Cal, Oklahoma State, and TCU. Now, the next one on the list is three-star commit Donovan Jones. He's another safety. Donovan is another Nebraska kid, measuring in around 6 foot, 180 pounds. Jones, again, is another defensive back for Rhule and Coach Coop, which in the 3-3-5 defense is a must, as the 3-3-5 has an extra defensive back usually playing on the field at the same time. So we all need to look at these recruiting classes for Nebraska based on what scheme the Huskers plan to run. Donovan Jones is a great athlete that runs a 4-second pro agility and also has a 35-inch vertical jump. Now, most likely Jones will end up staying at corner as he has the right size for that, but he could end up playing safety. But the one thing I did learn is Rhule and Coach Coop like their defensive backs to be very versatile and be able to move around the secondary and play corner or safety, as they feel it's a must when it comes to the secondary in the 3-3-5 defense. So you could see this class being put together right now has the right positions for this new 3-3-5 scheme. So I would expect more of the same to come. The next commitment was one we just received a couple of days ago in three-star wide receiver Ja'Cory Barney. Barney is 6 foot, 160 pounds. As Rhule continues to recruit well into July and down in the Florida area, Ja'Cory Barney committed to the Huskers over teams like Miami and Texas A&M. Barney is considered the 71st wide receiver by On3, but Rivals has Barney as the 18th wide receiver, which again shows you that these star rankings are a crapshoot and that really no one really knows how well these players are going to be, as I'm not as high on this kid as these two are. This is why Rhule uses his own system, and I'm going to follow and just see where he ends up with these players. Now, Barney is probably more of a defensive back in my opinion, but he could still make a great slot receiver, as he does have great speed and athleticism. Barney only measures at 160 pounds, so he's going to need to build on his frame during winter conditioning, but with such a small size, you also get a lot of quickness and speed, so that could benefit the slot receiver if he ends up moving there. Also, Barney shines with the ball in his hands, as he's very agile and very shifty, which allows him to make defenders miss him. This gives Barney an edge at the slot receiver position, and I could see him thriving there, but don't count him out playing on the defensive side. Rex Guthrie is our next commit for Rhule, as Guthrie is a three-star safety and is another secondary position for Rhule and Coach Coop. Guthrie is 6'1", 205 pounds, and another player he was also able to pull out of Colorado. Guthrie stuck out during his time during these camps with an outstanding performance and excellent testing numbers. Rex ran a 4.440, which is excellent, especially for a 6'1", 205 pound. And he also has a broad jump of 10 feet 4 inches, which is pretty impressive for a safety. Guthrie again joins a deep secondary within this class from all over the nation. I see Guthrie probably staying at safety, but again, depending on his winter conditioning, he could end up playing linebacker or even that rover position, and with his speed, could end up being a force up towards the line. Coach Coop and Rhule stated that they really don't care about these recruiting sites rankings or star rankings when it comes to these players, as they have specific attributes they are looking for and that they are wanting, as well as when they evaluate these players in person, that's what they want to go by. So they don't care what someone looked like to other sites. They're going to go, if the kid was never even ranked, they don't care. Another commit is the son of a legendary player and three-star commit Quinn Clark. Clark is 6'5". He's a wide receiver weighing just under 200 pounds. And he's another big wide receiver, which could end up being a big deal if the Huskers end up lining up 2 or 3 6'4", 6'5" wide receivers on top of having tight end Thomas Fedoni or Eric Gilbert lined up on the field. This is going to give defenses fits to have that many big people lined up against their secondary, as most teams don't have the defensive backs that can handle that many big guys. Now, like I said, Clark is the son of another legendary player, as his dad played halfback for the Huskers back in the 80s. His father is the late, great Ken Clark, who was a hell of a running back for the Huskers. But the Huskers were known for having outstanding running backs during Tom Osborne's time. And I love that I still see these players continue their father's footsteps and come to the Huskers to play. And it's a shame Dylan Raiola doesn't believe in that loyalty. But that's what you get when a former player who played under Tom Osborne than what you get from a former player or other Huskers who played under the other coaches. As every player respected Tom Osborne so much that you're still seeing the loyalty come out even to this day. Now, Ken Clark's son Quinn is the #1 player in the state of Montana, and he's another tall, lengthy kid that will give corners a fit due to his size. During Quinn's official visit, the coaching staff put a presentation together on what the offense would look like under Rhule and Satterfield, which impressed Quinn, as he stated that he really liked what Satterfield was going to bring and how he was going to run his offense. Now, specifics weren't given, but I came away thinking this offense is probably going to be a smack you in the mouth, pound it to you, and then surprise you with a over-the-top downfield pass to some of these speedy, tall, lengthy receivers, which is going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Don't be surprised if the first offensive play against Minnesota is a play-action pass downfield. Now, that's just an educated guess from me, but just something's telling me I wouldn't be surprised with Rhule, because I guarantee you he's already planning for that first game against Minnesota, which is why I'm leaning the Huskers when it comes to winning that first game, because Minnesota has some question marks and has slots and positions to fill, which includes quarterback. But I'll be doing a video on predictions at another time. As for the remaining commitments during this last 3 or 4 weeks, we also have inside offensive lineman Jake Peters from Iowa, safety Kylan Barta from Kansas, as well as punter Camden Cook out of Maryland. And I feel like with 23 commits, I feel like the 2024 class is probably winding down. You're probably not going to see many more commitments to the Huskers, as the Huskers have limited scholarships remaining. The only ones left probably would be if some of the big boys committed, like maybe Brandon Baker or Braylon, his teammate Braylon. If somebody like this, I think another one that the Huskers will get is probably offensive lineman Grant Bricks. He's a 4-star offensive lineman out of Iowa. But he does have some pretty good offers from like Oklahoma, Alabama, and even Kansas State. But I think his visit went really well when he came here about a week ago, and he's got a close connection to Pyle Gibson, the offensive lineman out of Texas. So some of them connections could easily sway Bricks towards the Huskers. So I kind of got him leaning towards the Huskers, but he's a hot commodity and he has not committed yet. But he did say he plans to commit here soon. But he's one of those players I see the Huskers would hold a spot for, as he is that good, as well as players like Brandon Baker or Breland, the defensive lineman Breland out of California.
Now, there is one more recruit we need to talk about, as he was a surprise official visit to the Cornhuskers not long ago that not many knew about or even talked about. And it's a big deal, as he is a offensive lineman, a 4-star offensive lineman out of Hawaii, 6'3", 300 pounds. Preston Tomiwa is his name. And after his visit with the Huskers, it really looks good and really leaning, I think, towards Nebraska of grabbing this young man. And that's one they're definitely going to have to take. He could probably play offensive tackle, which is something the Cornhuskers need. They do have a couple of inside offensive linemen they've recruited, but they still lacking on the offensive tackle position. Brandon Baker would be a great choice if we could somehow pull that one off. But if not, Preston Tomiwa is a big deal. Like I said, a 4-star offensive tackle. I feel like that's where he'll be playing if he did come. And to me, I'm thinking it's leaning the Huskers. He has 2 schools probably that I feel like have a shot at him. Oregon is the other one, because at one time it looked like he was going to commit to Oregon, and then all of a sudden he took this visit here to Lincoln, and he came out of this pretty impressed with Rhule and the city itself, along with the university. So let's keep an eye on that, as I feel like probably here in the next couple of weeks he's going to make his decision, and I think the Huskers got a real good chance. It's probably real close, 50-50 between Oregon and Nebraska. Maybe give Nebraska 52-53% and to Oregon's 47.
And if you would like to support the channel by leaving a small $1 or $2 tip, you can do so by clicking that thanks button below the video. We really would appreciate that. I want to thank everyone that has supported the channel. Without you, we couldn't do this. So again, thank you. And until the next video, go Big Red.